So how's my Spanish? It's más o menos, so. But between my limited Spanish and Google Translator, I think I can do just fine. After all, I managed to navigate throughout Colombia for weeks on end, and there's a much smaller English-speaking population in Colombia than in Mexico. Hello everyone, welcome to the latest episode of Man Overboard 50 Ain't Nothing But a Number, yo, with your host, Language Pearl. On this episode, we'll be discussing my upcoming trip to Mexico City. So there are two places in Latin America that are on my bucket list of places to visit before I move to Europe. They are Mexico City and Havana, Cuba. Mexico City for the overall Mexican vibe and food, and Cuba for the music and dance. This is my first trip of the year outside of the U.S., and it was supposed to be to Cuba. The money, the time, the availability, they were all perfect and in alignment. But upon further research and investigations into travel to Cuba, due to Cuba's current struggles with its infrastructure and economy, it was not a place I was ready to travel to. So I shifted that focus to a visit to Mexico City. So I have visited Mexico in the past to places like Tijuana, Cabo San Lucas, Baja California, Cancun, and Playa del Carmen. But as a city boy, my major desire was to visit Mexico City, one of the largest cities in the world. On this episode, I will be planning out my upcoming visit to Mexico, securing airfare, hotel accommodations, planning out a list of things to do and places to go. So if you're ready, let's get it, and get into it. Up first is flights. So I ended up getting a flight with Avianca for about $350. Typically, this flight is going to be about $550. But this one in particular, this is without assigned seats, no check-on bags, and no carry-on bags. You're only allowed to bring on one personal item, which must fit under your seat. And so for this trip, I'll be traveling with just one personal bag. I'll be traveling light and tight. My flight with Avianca will be traveling from Washington, D.C. to Mexico City. It'll leave at about 3 a.m. and arrive at 11 a.m. the next morning. There will be a 3-hour layover in San Salvador. I take one of the last metros from my home, leaving around 10 p.m. and arrive at the airport at 11:30. This way I can avoid a $250 parking bill. My current return flight from Mexico City leaves at 4:50 and arrives at 3 a.m. in Washington, D.C., again with a 5-hour layover in San Salvador. The metros in D.C. open around 5, so by the time I'm out of the airport and have everything situated, hopefully I'll only have between 1 hour to 1.5 hour to wait before the metro shows up. I'll take the metro home, and then from the metro location probably take an Uber to my house, 5 or 10 minute ride. Up next, food. So I've lived 6 years in the Bay Area in California and 6 years in Austin, Texas. I'm pretty used to good Mexican food at a reasonable price. I currently live in Washington, D.C., and it's a challenge to find good food, and when you do, it's definitely not reasonably priced. So I'm looking forward to traditional tacos in Mexico with homemade tortillas, cilantro, raw onions, and maybe a cooked cebolla. Next up, accommodations. For the first weeks in Mexico City, I'll be staying at Airbnb near La Condesa. The average nightly cost is about $40, but that includes all the fees for the hotel. When I visit San Miguel de Allende for a couple nights, I'll be staying at a room with a private bath at a community house for between $25 and $30 per night. I'm trying to schedule 2 days in Oaxaca to see the city and try the food, as it is rated one of the best food locations in all of Mexico. Then I have a final return to Mexico City for 3 days, and afterwards my return home. Activities. What will I be doing in Mexico City? Well, I've been doing Latin dancing and salsa for about 25 years, so I'm looking for places to go to do some dancing at nightclubs and Latin dance social events. I'll be staying in La Condesa because La Condesa is near the heart of a lot of the clubs and dance venues. I'll also visit La Museo Nacional de Antropología, which is the Museum of Anthropology. I have scheduled a 3-hour bike tour, which will occur on Saturday. I also have scheduled a free walking tour of downtown, though it's really not free. They just don't specify the fee that you're to pay the guides. But generally it can be anywhere from about 5 to 15 euros or $15 per person. That's on Thursday. On Friday, I'll be touring in a different location, but this is a paid tour for one of the unique neighborhoods in Mexico City. I would be primarily using public transportation to get around, meaning metros and buses. Spanish. So how's my Spanish? It's más o menos, so. But between my limited Spanish and Google Translator, I think I can do just fine. After all, I managed to navigate throughout Colombia for weeks on end, and there's a much smaller English-speaking population in Colombia than in Mexico. Finally, transportation. I will primarily be using public transportation to get around, meaning metros and buses. I'll also be taking a metro from the airport to Mexico City and taking a metro from Mexico City back to the airport. I'll supplement this with Uber travels, especially at night if it's late when I don't want to be dealing with the metro. I'll just get an Uber back to my Airbnb apartment. As part of my visit to San Miguel de Allende, I'll also be traveling there via a 4 to 5 hour bus ride. I think San Miguel de Allende is located north of Mexico City, so I'll be taking the bus north for 4 to 5 hours, stay 2 days, then I'll come back through Mexico City, stay one night, and I'm trying to arrange a visit to Oaxaca. That's another 5 to 6 hour bus ride, but that's in the south region. So I'll stay there for approximately 2 nights and then head back to Mexico City for my return trip home. The one thing that I didn't do a lot when I was young, but I certainly do now, is I do purchase travel insurance. Not only is this handy in the case of medical emergencies where they'll do medical evacuations if you can't get the appropriate care back to the U.S., but this also covers me in the event that for some reason my trip is cut short, or if I have to cancel the trip from the very beginning due to any type of emergency or medical reasons, I'll be refunded almost the entire amount for my total trip. Well, that concludes this information. And remember, achieve something different, believe something different, conceive something different, read something different, but most importantly, be something different. The world is waiting. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Ciao for now.